We are live.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Retrain Exhibitions, I would like to welcome you all to the second webinar of AMPITS on building a resilient manufacturing by leveraging industrial automation and digitalization. Just to give you all a brief about READ Exhibitions, we are world's leading event organizer with over 500 events in 30 countries and serves 43 industry sectors with the trade and consumer events. We are dedicated to creating outstanding customer experiences and delivering contacts, content, and communities that will be transformational for our customers. Read Exhibitions organizes events on the event on machine manufacturing, metal cutting, metal forming, automation, tooling industry across the globe, like in Thailand, Vietnam, Germany, USA, Japan, China, Turkey, etc. So based on our global reach, experience, and reputation, we are building the most extensive platform in India to showcase product premieres, innovations, create new trends, business launches, networking, and education, ultimately creating the future of the industry and help enhance customer value and increase their ROI. With this interest, we tied up with our partner, Train Exhibition, and I would now like to welcome Mr. Cyril Pereira, Managing Director, Train Exhibitions. Over to you, Cyril.
Thank you, Chitali. A warm welcome to all the distinguished panelists, today's moderator, and my colleagues at Read Triune as well as from Read Exhibitions. Welcome you all. Friends, as we sit here for this webinar, worldwide there are 7.2 million people who are affected by COVID and over 4,12,000 people who have died due to this coronavirus. Before I start, I request all of you to stand up for a minute to observe 1 minute silent prayer for all the people who have lost their lives due to COVID. Please stand up. Thank you very much. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you. Today's topic is building resilient manufacturing by leveraging industrial automation and digitalization. Friends, we are all aware changes are the essence of anyone's life. And going forward, there will be a lot of changes, whether in our working environment, social distancing, our manufacturing activities or service activities. There could be a lot of changes. And how are we prepared to take forward our businesses with the COVID? Because we are aware that COVID is going to be part of our life and we have to live with it. Now, going forward, I'm sure automation, digitalization, all this is going to be introduced in our businesses. So how prepared are we? Today we have distinguished and prominent speakers on the panel with us today, and I'm sure they're going to throw light on the way forward for us. And I heartily welcome all the panelists, and I'm sure this is going to be a fruitful webinar today that we are going to attend. Before I proceed, I would like to give you some do's and don'ts during the webinar so that the webinar flows smoothly. Let us strictly follow the below guidelines to ensure a smooth and productive experience for all participants. By default, only the speaker and the moderator's audio will be turned on and all attendees' audios will be muted. Although you have the option to unmute yourself, please do so only when asking a question or responding to one if the moderator has so requested. At all other times, keep your microphone muted. To make a point or ask a question, please use the raise hand option and wait for the moderator to come to you. In general, the moderator will address questions in the order in which hands are raised. Note that you may also use the Q&A option to raise your queries to the panelist, and based on time availability, either the moderator or the panelist will answer it, or the answers will be mailed to you within 72 hours. In case the question you wanted to ask was asked by any other participants, or you have got the answer that you are looking for, you can unraise your hand. To respect the closed door nature of Read, Drive and Exhibitions forum sessions, please avoid taking screenshots or recording the session of any guest speaker. Read, Drive and Exhibitions will, as per standard practice, make the video recording available with suitable edits on its website. We will also provide a conclusion paper of the session in written or audio formats. I would take one more minute to introduce our moderator today, Mr. Niju Vijayan. Niju Vijayan is the Executive Director with Aventium Advisors LLP, a strategic advisory firm. He has 21 years of experience in helping clients formulate strategies and actions in rapidly disrupting markets and industries. He has advised numerous Fortune 500 companies in his career, besides working with the government on inputs for policy formation. He takes a special interest in the manufacturing sector and has been an invitee speaker at various national and international fora. Previously, he established and managed the business unit of industrial automation in South Asia and Middle East region for a global consulting organization. Here I present to you Mr. Niju Vijayan to take forward the webinar, please.
Thank you, Cyril, and thank you for the glowing introduction. So good morning to all the participants. It's my privilege to host this event as the moderator. And before I go forward, I think it's important that we once again look at the context of India's economic growth and the importance of industrial sector, because what we're going to discuss today has got a lot of strong connect to that. We have been hearing about the 5 trillion economy that we are looking to achieve by 2025. We, of course, were on track to do that with some amount of hiccups before something unprecedented happened, and that's the COVID-19. So this has changed the life, the business, the society for all of us, the way we, approach many things that we are taken for granted. So that has gone through a change. And today I am sure that most of you have joined this, have come to listen to what this change is going to do to us, or how do we manage this change. So that's going to be the the key thing that we're going to discuss over the next I would say 75 to 80 minutes of our time. So no doubt we are passing through a very difficult, a challenging kind of a situation, and more importantly, we are all, I would say, a little anxious about how the future is going to pan out for the business that we are managing today. So what I would like to do is not attempt, or rather with my co-panelist, attempt to give you a solution, but what we would like to do is, with the panelists, we would like to give you a direction which will definitely help manage your the future better than what you are doing today. So what are we going to do over the next 75, 80 minutes is we are going to touch upon few topics within the overall the sphere of automation and digitalization that's taking place. Not that it's anything new, but the way it is now adopted, or the way it will go in future, is something that we should look at with a lot of interest. So we're going to talk about digital technology adoption. We're going to talk about how investments need to be very or managed in a prudent manner, or we will talk about how the medium to long-term scenario is going to emerge as we go forward. So I have the great privilege to have a esteemed panel of speakers here, and I would say that this kind of represents the diversity of Indian industrial sector. So we have the speakers from the discrete manufacturing, we have speakers from the batch process, we have from the continuous process industry, and on top of that we have people who provide the automation solutions, those who provide technology for all of them. So you couldn't have asked for a better lineup of speakers today. So it's once again, I reiterate, it's my privilege to kind of moderate all of them, and they are all very senior executives who have put in years and years of experience. So what comes from them should be the gospel truth, according to me. So with that, let me have the privilege of introducing each one of them. So to begin with, my request to the speakers would be to raise your hand so that the participants would be able to identify you. So the first speaker that we have on the panel is Mr. Naresh Gaur. He is the Senior Vice President, Manufacturing Operations of Amneal Pharmaceuticals. Second, we have Mr. Anand Lakshmivarahan. He is the Chief Digital Officer and also the Executive Committee member of Kane Oil and Gas, which is a Vedanta Group company. The third speaker we have is Mr. Nasir Deshmukh. He is the Head of Manufacturing Operations for Mahindra and Mahindra. The fourth speaker we have is Mr. Gaurav Sarup, Managing Director, Marshall Machines, and co-founder of Marshall Automation America Incorporated. The next speaker we have is Mr. Harish Bajaj. He is the Deputy Managing Director of the Japanese company Mitutoyo South Asia Private Limited. And the sixth speaker for the day we have is Mr. Nitin Nair, who is the General Manager for Digital Enterprise and Digital Services for Siemens India. Right. So as I mentioned, we are going through unprecedented times. So it will be good to begin with, sharing some thoughts that our speakers have, because they are no different. We are all in the same ecosystem. So we want to know from them, when we talk about the transformation, and transformation not from the, a large perspective, but I'm talking about the change which we have seen in the recent past, how it has impacted manufacturing and business for each one of them. And while they speak, you can take notes, raise questions, and at the same time, be ready to have some questions that will be put to all the participants. You will be given 30 seconds to answer that. And that will also add to the flavor of the discussions that we have, so that, we make it very more inclusive based on the feedback that we get. To begin with, as I mentioned, the transformation part of it. So let me have the first question directed at Mr. Naresh Gaur, to understand how they have, gone through a certain amount of change in the recent months, and from a pharmaceutical angle, and from, I know for a fact that they, export to very, difficult markets like US as an FDA compliant unit. So how have you gone through the transformation? What have you done? If you could, in a brief manner, explain to our participants today.
Thank you, Niju. Thank you so much. So, guys, I come from a pharmaceutical company, which is a part of essential services. So, unlike several others, we were from the day one working up and going up in full steam. The only thing was because of this physical distancing. I won't use the term social distancing, because socially we are connected now also. Physically, we are not. So that's what we practiced. Immediately, we grouped together, worked out strategies. How can we utilize whatever we have? Because everything was locked down. So the best things were, we created distances. We separated people in the buses. We also, segregated people, teams. And what we did was, in the buses also, like, we segregated few seats which will be kept as blank, and those kind of things were implemented. And moreover, being a pharmaceutical company, we were already, when we entered the plant, we were already wearing PPEs, we were already doing sanitizing practices. So all those things, hygiene, personal hygiene, is a part of our GMP culture. We all were into it. And being, as Niju already shared, we are exporting to the US. So we have the strictest CGMP compliance at place, and that helped us a lot. People understood very nicely what we are supposed to do. For us, these words like quarantine or sanitization or PPEs were not new. We are practicing day in, day out. So we were all equipped. Not only that, we adopted few more techniques, like in each of us offices, we have a guy who moves around with a lot of papers asking for everybody's signature. So we stopped that, because if that person is contaminated, definitely he'll contaminate so many other guys. And that's how we started using scan, adopt, more and more of telephonic calls. All the meetings were overnight changed into the telephonic conversations, or like we had several softwares are available, Teams, Microsoft Teams, and all those. So most of the meetings are now happening this way. We are not moving unnecessarily. People are, people are used to an Indian scenario on the coffee machine or in the canteen, and when going to the luncheon, they'll just hug each other. So we have stopped everything of those things. Strict vigilance was kept. CCTVs were monitored, and that's how, I mean, we are touch wood, in one of the plants we haven't had any case. I mean, in none of our plants we have had any cases happening within the plant. Whosoever is there infected, because Ahmedabad is, is a very highly infected, so we are not, we are very safe and healthy, all the people, touch wood. That's what is happening. Besides that, there were several technologies we were already using, like building management system, uh, pick and place in our machines, automated lines. There are several softwares that we are already using. So I don't know about other industry, but I've seen automobiles. They use a lot of robotics. In pharmaceuticals also, we have actuators. We have programmed logics, PLCs, SCADA systems, which help automation. And now, maybe in the next phase, we'll talk how to go ahead and what else we can do. Few examples I would like to give, like Jyoti CNC Engineering from Rajkot. They came up with a affordable ventilator, and Gujarat government was given a lot of supplies by those guys. So that's what will come in future, I guess. And the thing, as far as manpower is concerned, we have to be now prepared how to reduce it. It's no more a case of reducing cost. It is now a case of survival. More manpower, more people will definitely increase our risk to infections. So that take care of. That's all right now. Moment from me, Niju.
Thank you, Mr. Naresh. I wish, every industry was as prepared as pharma to deal with the COVID. All right. So let me move over to Mr. Anand. So, Mr. Anand, we all know that the oil and gas industry has been, of course, going through a lot of transformation. We have been hearing about electric vehicles. We have been hearing about everything on solar. So, the hydrocarbons as an industry is something which has been, looking at changes, for quite some time. But this must be must have been a very different kind of an experience. So if you could share with the participants today.
Sure. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Niju. You're right. I think the industry, oil and gas industry, was probably already going through a little bit of turmoil or in the electric vehicle and other industries. But you have noticed where the prices, the global prices, where the benchmark prices were 4 weeks back. Maybe the last week or so, it seems to be recovering. From an organization perspective, when I look at ourselves, I think the vision has been that we make India self-sufficient, towards our energy security goals. Today, we produce close to 25 to 27% of India's crude oil, and the vision is to double that in the next 3 years. From that perspective, I think because there has been a shock both on the demand side and the supply side, I think there is sort of a double whammy for the industry, and I think we are hoping that we all soon recover with it. Um, Talking about digitalization, automation in this context, one of the things has been that, as a company, I think we've been a pioneer, or we've been at least an early adopter of technology. So for some of you on the call who are familiar with this concept of a digital oil field, which is essentially the ability to monitor a well sitting in the corporate office where the production is actually maybe happening miles away. Um, we probably had our digital oil field system a decade ago. The good thing has been that in the last 3 4 months, a lot of that automation, digitalization has helped us. And in the last 2 2.5 years, we've been deploying technologies, digital technologies like artificial intelligence or machine learning, or using Internet of Things in specific business context to be able to automate decision making, to be able to automate some of the work processes which are very manual and labor intensive. And the way that has helped here is obviously with a leaner team that we have now, because of like Mr. Naresh talked about, physical distancing and other phenomena that has come into place because of COVID, we're still able to manage similar levels of production with a much leaner staff and with a lot of people and experts staying remotely. Just to also give you all a sense of how collaboration or virtual collaboration, such as what we are using here, has in WhatsApp forward, which says who led the digital transformation for the organization. Was it the one of the C-level person, or is it COVID-19? And it's a sort of a joke saying that COVID-19 has enabled it. Uh, the reality has been that yes, because people have been forced to work out of their home or wherever they are, they've had to onboard themselves onto platform like this. And in our own case, we just check the usage statistics of things like Microsoft Teams or Zoom before COVID-19 and after COVID-19 set in. And I can tell you that we've seen about a 15x, 20x rise in usage statistics of some of these tools, right? The other thing it has done is people are now starting to believe that automation and digitalization is an essential thing. It is no more a luxury, right? Because I think they've seen it come to use during these times, which is making every business, every function to think that they would actually benefit from automating and digitalizing more. So that's really how it has shaped up for us. And yeah, obviously, if there are questions around it, we'll be happy to take. But back to you, Nivi.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. Mr. Nasir, I think you're a person whom everyone would look up to because last month, if I recall the statistics, there were zero vehicles sold. So I don't have to really say anything more in terms of how this particular sector is doing. But we would like to, we know for a fact that, the automotive industry has been really putting in a lot of effort to kind of, reconfigure its supply chain, look at, how it can, prepare to get back to where it was. So what has happened in the last 2 months, if you could share with us?
Yeah, so good morning, all my panelists and the people who have joined through the webinar. So the COVID pandemic has actually created a major economic disruptions post, I would say, the Second World War, which we all reading about and all. And auto industry is amongst the most affected, as you were also saying. And post lockdown, as the country went into lockdown post 23rd, we also went to the lockdown. And uh, somewhere mid-May, we started to open up gradually as the government started relaxing some norms. And Mahindra had an advantage of having a plants decentralized, both auto and farm. So it's not concentrated at one location. So our plants are pan India, so that's an advantage. So if some location or if some city is in red zone or something, some is in green zone, so we can initiate some activity on that. So that was a little advantage for us. So we started gradually started ramping up, but as we were ramping, there were many challenges. Especially we all know auto industries, mainly the people. It's function of people, and getting people mainly from all these zones is a big challenge, and not only for us, for the entire supply chain, our tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. And we all read about the migrant workers moving from city to their natives and all those things. So getting people starting the activity is a big challenge, ramping up a big challenge. So gradually we started that. And new things, as Mr. Gaur and Mr. Anand were also talking about, many new things. First time we could hear like sanitizations and focusing on the transportation of people and uh, canteen facility and how to ensure the distancing at the workplace. These were the new topics for us actually. So basically the post lockdown scenario, the whole change what I see is more human centric type of thing. And I feel the entire value chain what we have, there is I could see a big change. If I divide that value change into three, like on the demand side, of course, in the April and May, there was a zero sale and all that is there since our dealerships and all were the complete lockdown. But now slowly that also opening up. One thing what I and the entire auto fraternity we are seeing is the change in the behavior of the customer. That is something we are seeing, and there's a shift which is happening. People want to buy more through a digital mode rather than physically going to the dealership and driving and touch and feel and those type of things. So preference of buying, that is a shift which we were earlier anticipating, but now it's becoming a reality. So vehicles like small commercial vehicles and things like that, we are seeing some surge into that, and mainly because of the e-commerce. So last mile delivery vehicles, and also we are seeing some particular pattern emerging post lockdown on the demand side. On the plant or factory side, health and hygiene has all of a sudden become the priority. And we also have done a couple of things like developing an app for how the physical distance is maintained, how people are wearing masks, contact tracing and things like that on the shop floor. We have done piloting of that, and we are trying to scale it up, because this COVID thing is not only for 1 month or 2 months, it's going to stay maybe a 1 year or something, and then we'll have to live with it. So we'll have to use digital technology for ensuring, because it's very difficult to track people movement and things like that. One thing, as an auto industry, we are saying the cash has become a big challenge. So in the short term, conserving cash is the priority, and long term, basically consolidating cost is the priority. On the supply side, auto industry is very, very complex supply chain, and we also have our tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers in China and the Europes and other parts of the world, and getting parts. So earlier we were having a lot of advantage in terms of cost, and also now post COVID or in the COVID scenario, what we are seeing is there will be a shift in mindset, moving from global to local and things like that. And already people have started looking from that perspective, how to have supplier base close to your factories in the local, so that we can leverage the supply chain. So these are some of the transformation which I am seeing, and which will be there, and that will permanently change the way auto business or auto industry works.
Wonderful. So very interesting point that you mentioned, that the cash in the short term and cost consolidation in the long term.
Yeah.
But the other thing which I didn't like was you saying that you will sell the vehicles online. I'm a guy, old school guy, would like to touch and feel a vehicle, or even drive it for 10 kilometers before I could even think of going anywhere closer to it. All right. So let me move to Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Gaurav, I'm very sure that your machines that you build goes into the auto industry and many other industries. And with Mr. Nasir talking about auto industry going through a challenge, that one part of the business would have been impacted, the others would have also faced some challenge. So please throw some light on how has been your experience in the last couple of months.
First of all, welcome to all the other panelists and the attendees. And it's such an honor and pleasure to be here today. When we talk about this big transformation, which has occurred because of the COVID pandemic, I would like to talk first about the transformation that has occurred in our thought process, which means in my company, and what I perceive to be the change in the thought process in my customers. So as far as Marshall is concerned, the immediate impact was on the supply chain. And one of the things that we've done is that we have changed our design thinking. We want to reduce our variety of inventory, reduce the total quantum of inventory also. So our design team started working from day one of the lockdown, because all the team members had their workstations delivered to their homes so that they could effectively work from homes. And we used all the technologies available to collaborate. And we got started on redesigning our products so that they could become more modular, so that we would be able to interchange parts and first of all, reduce the quantum of inventory. And secondly, we could deliver to the customer what they wanted from what we had. This was one. Second focus was on optimization. Since we are a machine builder, so literally hundreds of different complex parts come into a machine, into a particular model, and a lot of assembly work is there. And it is not as, on the scale of a vehicle manufacturer, so it's not that automated or that optimized normally. But we tried to apply a new kind of thinking to optimizing the manufacturing of machine tools, right from the machining part to the assembly and the testing part. These are two of the changes which we have done in-house. Now, coming to customers, the biggest change that I have seen is a change in mindset, which is an acceleration towards smart manufacturing. And I have been very active in, first of all, trying to map what is going on in the minds of customers, and also to subtly push this change, because I deeply believe in smart manufacturing, including Industry 4.0 and automation. So I used this lockdown time to reach out to about 350 business leaders in India and US. US is our second market. We have a small company there. And one of the questions which I asked was, where do you see the future of manufacturing? And the overwhelming answer was that we will move towards smart manufacturing much faster than we had thought earlier. Second question I asked was that where is the money? Everybody's suffered a loss. So who's going to invest on this? The overwhelming answer was that you don't need tons of money. You don't need to start with a big bang. You can start incrementally, do some pilot projects, see the success, and then replicate. Third question was, what is the biggest impediment to this? And the answer, overwhelming, was lack of adequately or appropriately trained people in-house. Because they are not adequately trained, either they'll be indifferent, they'll not understand the value of this new technology, or they will oppose it because of fear, or even if they are enthusiastic, they will be incompetent in smoothly implementing, so that your return on investment will be slow. And I believe one of the most important words right now or sentences is return on investment. So these are broadly the changes I have observed in post-COVID scenario.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. I think you set the tone for one of the key things that we're going to discuss is investments and return on investments. Great. So let me move on to Mr. Harish Bajaj. Mr. Harish, you represent not just an organization, but also Japanese technology, which is so obsessed with quality. And today, I think when Mr. Nasir says that right now conserving cash is the priority, has the quality taken a backseat in the last couple of years? If yes or if no, I mean, you can give me the answer based on that.
Again, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me over on this panel discussion, and welcome to all the panelists and all the attendees of this panel discussion. So, Teja, first of all, let's just talk about transformation really quickly. I think what we are seeing right now is not much compared to what's yet to come. So I believe that the biggest change is yet to come. And you see, right now, I think people are, as you mentioned, people are basically looking at survival. So the immediate goal is survival, whether it's cash flow, whether it's people, whether it's reorganization, whether it's sanitization, masks, so on and so forth, which everybody is pretty much forced to implement, and we are implementing. So it's just pretty much, if you're not implementing, you're well behind the game. So I think these are the things that are at the present case scenario. I think what we see from an internal perspective, from an internal organization, from a global perspective, our customers have been engaged with us. So setting up work from home has been a priority for us. Disaster recovery. So we were ready to go as soon as disaster hit, and we were ready to serve our customers as they wanted us to serve them, whether it be training. So we've done, for example, training for customers, 150 people, 120 people, because people want to know, people want to learn, people want to understand as to what's next. Because I think, you know, a lot of companies, the large companies, the global companies and the big Indian global companies have realized that yes, Industry 4.0 was a topic of, you know, discussion prior to COVID-19, but it has come to the forefront. And who are the players in the market who can help them to achieve the goal that they want to achieve through automation, through basically, you know, getting their process in motion. As you know, I think Gaurav mentioned, people don't have the skill, people don't have the expertise. That's where we come in. That's where we, you know, can come and contribute and say, hey, listen, this is what technology is available in the market, being used the past 5 years or 10 years overseas. I'll cite some examples for you. You see, we service all kinds of industries in India, whether it be automotive, aerospace, healthcare, pharma, medical manufacturing, electronic manufacturing, oil and gas, so on and so forth. So getting an idea in terms of stepping into somebody's factory, right? When I step into somebody's factory in India and I step into a factory in Japan, and I have been to both sides, there's a vast difference. The difference is that a factory in Japan, which may be double the size, will have half the number of people. That's today. That's without the full scale of automation that we are talking about that's yet to come, right? And that's also because in India there's an excess labor. So as manufacturers, you say, okay, fine, I've got excess labor, I can utilize that labor, lower my cost, I don't need to invest as much. So people have not thought about that investment process in automation as of yet. But now, given the situation as it is changing, as people are facing a crisis with workers, with skill, with you know, operating at 30%, 50%, 60% staff, what do? They have to look at automation. They have to look at this transformation. Speaking to your question about quality, I think quality is something that is never going to die. So if manufacturers over here or anywhere in the world believe that they can compromise on quality, I think I can speak for most of quality manufacturers, they will not be able to compete, because the larger manufacturers, the way they compete is on quality, is on efficiency, is on productivity. That is not going to change. I strongly believe that that is only going to increase and enhance further as we go and move forward in this, you know, during COVID era and post-COVID era, which is going to come to an end at some point. So there are changes coming. There are big changes coming. I think companies right now are trying to figure out exactly how to survive, how to learn to reorganize themselves for the future. A lot of companies have already started the investigations in terms of how to push forward with automation, as what we've seen, as what we've trained many customers on during this lockdown period. And that's what we've been busy with, frankly, is basically educating our customers, hey, this is what's available in the market. This is what you can do. You want to operate a machine without attending the machine, we can do that for you. You can sit in a different room while you can operate a machine with an automation system, with a PLC system, get your measurements done, get a feedback done to a computer, which goes back to, let's say, Naresh sitting in his office or his home as a quality manager or as a head, and he can have visibility in terms of what's going on in the factory floor. I think these are the trends that we are going to see pick up quite fast as soon as the dust settles.
Sure. Thanks, Harish. So, Mr. Nitin, let me come to you. You represent, you know, almost what, 175-year-old organization, which has been a technology leader, very respectable organization. You have given many technologies to the industry. So, you know, I'm not going to ask you a question whether could you foresee this? Obviously, it would not have been. But what is that as an organization you could do in terms of the change that has happened within the last 2 months, globally as well as in India?
So thank you, Niju. So let me start very specific with India. We are not only a leading technology company, but we are also a manufacturer with 22 factories in India. So we are on both sides. On one side, we are a manufacturer. On the other side, we are also providing technology to all our customers. And whatever we provide to our customers, we want to be sure, and therefore we have been deploying that in our factories over the last few years. And believe me, that really has helped us, especially during this time. We have seen that the fact that we had digitalized our factories and done a digital transformation in our own factories has been a big benefit during this period. You know, um, I agree with Harsh. We've been also focusing a lot on skill development, both our own skill development and the skill development of our customers, because you know, I believe in one line that I heard, which says, if you did not acquire a new skill during the lockdown, then you were never short of time. So very true. So if so this was a time for us to reskill, step back, rethink, because the world has changed and this is a new normal. COVID or this situation is not going to go away in the next 1 month or 2 months. We are going to have to learn to live with it, and we are going to have to learn to work with it. Now, what does this mean? This means that probably this is not the last lockdown. Are we prepared for the next lockdown? For example, if we see between last time and this time, we were all prepared with our Google Pays and Paytms and digital money. So, despite the fact that we were at home and probably not able to get cash, we were very comfortable with digital payments. We learned from last time and moved on. So, the question is, how much are we learning from this uh, lockdown and moving on? We have been providing a lot of remote services to our customers to keep the plants running, to keep the lines running, which is very important during these times. And we have seen remote services work well. Um, we've seen some increase in trends like cyber attacks. This is also happening, but I think that is also a part that we need to be prepared for the future. This is, once again, the virus is both not only in the real world, but also in the virtual world, and we have to fight both. So that's more or less a quick perspective. There is also a lot of perspective on skilling and reskilling. People, workforce will change drastically after the lockdown and when we restart. We all have in our hands today a smartphone. So how can we leverage this smartphone for reskilling on the job? You know, how can we create a kind of a digital professor who's always with you, like a Google Siri or a who actually takes you and helps you on your job and skilling on the job. So these are the challenges that we are seeing, and there is no one solution for these challenges. But then we are working with all the available technologies to find solutions, which I feel the technologies are already there. They have been there for a while. Uh, the process of finding solutions, of course, has got accelerated with COVID.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nitin, for the range of experiences that you could share. So before we move ahead, I would like to open up a quick poll for the participants. So can we have the first question up there? So all the participants, please be ready to answer your question, which is, I will let it read it out for you. The question is, have you adopted higher level of digital technologies in your operations in the last 2 months? And you can choose between whether you have done or not. So we have a large number of participants. So I'm hoping that all of them are furiously selecting between yes and no. Wonderful. So we have the answer also here. Oh, so I think, it kind of goes on to vindicate the thoughts and the opinions expressed by the speakers here that yes, there has been an upsurge in the digital technology adoption. So 66% says that yes, they have done that. So 34% you haven't done that. I think after they listen to all of us, it's going to bring about a big change today. So before that, so this is going to be a good point for us while we move on to the next part of it, which is on the digital technology adoption. Now, while you talked about transformation, and I think one of the things which we have heard, by default is all of you have really gone ahead and, made sure that you're leveraging the digital technologies. And I was thinking that, if we have someone like a Microsoft or a Zoom on this call, they would have been very happy because it would have been I would say a non-paid promotion done for them, the number of times we have used their, brands. So my question first goes to, let's say, Mr. Anand. So let me ask you this question. Mr. Anand, you have mentioned that you have been an early adopter of automation and digital technologies. So if you could give us some examples of what you have done a little different or probably added on top of what you have been doing in the last, say, couple of months.
Okay, okay. So I'll sort of rewind back, Niju, not last couple of months, but I think the last couple of years.
Sure.
So that's really where our digital journey and digital transformation journey as a company started. Like I said, we already had a lot of automation given our processes need that. What we really started doing a couple of years back was we said there are these newer technologies that are emerging, whether it is advanced analytics or machine learning or even mobile enabling some of the processes. We said, can we start looking at some quick wins so people start seeing possibilities, they start experiencing some of these technologies, right? And we really didn't need I would say like a formed up comprehensive plan to get started on that, because there are a number of people in the organization who had experienced this elsewhere who are now part of this organization, and we said, okay, let's get started on some of the quick wins in terms of either mobile enabling processes or developing an analytical model to predict an equipment's failure, right? While we did that, we obviously also felt that for the medium term, it was important to lay out a clear digital strategy and roadmap aligned to the business vision and goal, right? Then we roped in a consulting company and really like a 3.5 months exercise of co-creation of a digital strategy and roadmap is what we did. Uh, I would say if you look at the process of how we went about it, we really met each of our teams, each of our business teams and functions, held design thinking workshops with them to understand where the problems are today in the business, where the opportunities are, and what out of those could we solve with digital. Now, when we came out of the 3.5 months exercise, we were really had a laundry list of about 100 to 120 different opportunities for digitalization and automation across our business, across our assets. And we said, obviously, you can't go after all of them. Then we sort of did a few design thinking workshops to prioritize 10, 12 of these initiatives that will yield us the biggest value in the years to come. So that was like selecting about 12, 15 of these initiatives across our oil and gas value chain, whether it is around production optimization or asset reliability and integrity, health, safety, security, and environment. It's a very important thing for our business. It's a social license to operate sort of a requirement for us. And of course, on our side, we've got the exploration, which is essentially trying to find where the oil is below the subsurface. And there's a lot of digital technology today in place that is helping people interpret easily in terms of where the oil is below the subsurface. And finally, of course, the corporate function portfolio, like our finance teams or HR team, we said, how do we automate monotonous processes, so free people up for the more important and core work, right? So really, from the digital strategy and roadmap in the last year or so, we've executed on some of those ideas, and to give our participants a sense of some of these ideas, we've actually, I would say, teamed up with startups. One of the startups that I can talk about is in the area of corrosion management. Now, uh, corrosion was always like offline inspection driven stuff, but this startup came up with an idea of having the ability to monitor corrosion in real time using Internet of Things, cloud, and analytics as the technology there. So we really piloted that in one of our facilities. That's one example of how we're sort of leveraging technology. When I talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence, there are a number of ideas that we have implemented. To give again people some real life examples, we have what we call workover rigs, which we move from one well to the other to repair well equipment. Now, typically this process was very manual because there will be a team of 3 or 4 people who would come together, try and look for information from various sources, and then take the best decision to move a rig to the right well. And at any point in time, you may have a number of workover opportunities, which means that if you had the right ability to move the rig to the right well, then you are able to maximize production. So when we started on this, we said, how do we go about automating it? And right now, over I would say a 3.5 months period, we were able to develop a solution where you feed this optimization algorithm all the constraints in the field and the number of rigs you've got, and the optimization algorithm sort of decides and creates a schedule of moving the rig to the right well to be able to maximize production, right? So it was really like a no-brainer. Initially, when we went on to this exercise, there was a thought saying that, will it even improve anything? And really, when we developed it, we see that we could almost save 2 days worth of production, because we are able to move the rigs to the right place. So there have been a number of data algorithm-based optimization algorithm-based tools that we have developed in the last year and a half that have come to use, during these times, because you're then only leaving so much to the humans to do, and the machine gets to do a lot, right? So yeah, I think we continue on this journey now. Our focus right now is to democratize development of these digital solutions across the organization, because we want people from every function, every business to take the lead and get closer to these technologies and adopt it, and drive transformation through adoption of these technologies.
Wonderful, Mr. Anand. I wish you all the best in your digital journey going forward. So let me come to you, Mr. Naresh. You did give us a hint that you have been adopting digital technologies. So what have you been doing prior to this, COVID, and how it has changed, and what you intend to do going forward?
Sorry. Thanks, Niju. So like few things we were already practicing, but other things that have come up. One is the biggest thing, like everybody talked about, the manpower. So boosting the manpower morale, motivating them. So we started creating some videos from the leaders, from the team members, and using this smartphone. And there are several technologies available for creating videos. We started sharing with the groups, playing in the canteens, so that people keep on coming to the facilities. Because there was so much of panic in the homes, looking at the media and reports, news. Besides that, we made clear-cut, that foot-operated sanitizers. It was a very simple technology, nothing, no hi-fi things. Contactless attendance systems, and displaying several positive messages in the teams so as to motivate them. That was one aspect to run the business. Second thing was even what we saw, FDA, US FDA, instead rather than traveling, they have started doing all virtual audits now. We have already started looking at it. Then what we are thinking and we have started doing is looking for suppliers, local resources, as it was being discussed recently. I mean, in this panel also. Now more and more, in fact, I used to practice personally local resources. I believed hiring people from the surrounding villages always helps because those people don't run away and we operate air conditioned facilities. So they are always happy to work in air conditioned scenario rather than in the villages. So that has further helped us. And as far as robots are concerned, in sterile environment, aseptic conditions, and wherever the dangerous chemicals are there, robotics were already there. Now, what I would like to say is for the long term, because there are so many technology guys sitting over here, because of this urgency of going in automation, we should think of affordable robotics, because definitely as Nasir shared or Nitin said, from where the cash will come, from where the money will come. Mr. Swaroop is also saying, how are we going to invest? So there is a small story, you all must have heard it, that the tiger runs for his hunger and the deer runs for his life. So if we don't invest now, we'll be out. There are countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia, all those people, they are already grabbing our businesses. So we have to now think on these aspects. India is a back office, a service provider to the globe as far as IT goes. We have brilliant minds sitting in mechanical hubs like Pune or Rajkot or Manesar, you name them. Now we have to collaborate and create affordable robotics, affordable automation systems, so that the cash will also come and people will start implementing it. And there will be people around like Mr. Harish and all. They'll be showing the path. So that's the way out. Otherwise, today it is COVID-19. Tomorrow it could be some other virus. You never know. So that's what my take is. We will have to have affordable robotics, and let's not worry about the capexes. That it's going to, if you will survive, then only the capexes will come. No? If you won't survive the business, where will the capex come in picture? So the return on investment is no more a relevant discussion to happen. Today, the survival is the question. That's my take.
Okay. Mr. Naresh, very good point. And, what I would like to kind of, give a heads up to both Mr. Harish and Mr. Nitin when we get to the next topic, which is investment, return on investment, and that to risk and rewards. I think you need to keep your notes ready. I will come for that. All right. So continuing on that, on the digital adoption journey. So Mr. Nasir, automotive is known to have been an early adopter, a more intense adopter of digital technologies. So, how has it benefited your organization? You did mention about, certain things which has helped you to, make sure that the supply chain is, kept ready so that whenever you're up and running, that's not going to take much time. But still give us a, a slightly insightful, detail of something that you would have done in the recent past.
Yeah, Niju, you are right. As an organization, we have a very structured roadmap for deployment of Industry 4.0. Maybe 3 years back, we started this journey, and we have a strategic vision for our organization, like how to have an end-to-end connectivity with IoT and AI at the base and the automation, of course. So we have a vision, and then we are working on that. So a lot of things we have done at the front end, where we have a customer interface for the plant factories and at the supply chain also. So I'll like to give some quick examples. So post COVID pandemic, basically the focus is on contactless. For the our sales guys quickly implemented 2 app-based solutions, which I mentioned about the car owning solution. Mahindra Own Online is a car owning solution where we can buy a car in 4 easy steps digitally. The payment also is done digitally, financing and everything. Similarly, we have gone for contactless service. So where we can book for the service and we get an estimate and we can do a digital payment and things like that. So these were the very quick things which we could implement post-COVID, looking at the contactless as the priority. Post-COVID, I mean, for the factory or the plant side, I don't see any new thing but it's more of an acceleration because we were doing a lot of things. We were doing last 3 years, a lot of things we have done on the IoT front, machine connectivity. We have identified 6 areas, 6 work streams to work on, like production management, quality, resource management, supply chain, people management, equipment. So these are the 5 to 6 areas we are already working on. So post COVID, actually, these are the things which are getting accelerated, and it is really helping us. So of course, when we say automation, it is mainly from the quality perspective, from the ergonomics perspective and safety. And now as we are talking about less and less human dependency and more so these are the things which will be accelerated, and we'll try to work further on this. On the supply chain, when I talked about the cash, in the short term, the cash is very critical. So we are trying to work on how we can move to demand driven inventory, where we are able to intake or invert the material what we are supposed to convert it and sell it. So no extra inventory. So it's more of a replenishment model. So how to get transformed ourselves to a demand driven inventory. So here we are trying to leverage AI on a very fast track. Similarly, our process efficiency, as we are aware now, post COVID, the manufacturing operation is becoming inefficient because of the distancing and things like that. So how to improve our process efficiency by leveraging technology? This is an area we are trying to work. Predictive quality. This is something from the customer, keeping a customer focus as well as the cost focus. So these are the 3-4 areas where we are seeing a lot of acceleration. We want to speed it up and try to make our organization more resilient. What is our today's topic of how to make an organization resilient through digital technology. So digital is the answer for making the things more, I would say, foolproof from the future perspective.
Very well said. So let me come to you, Mr. Gaurav. You have been I have followed you for some time, and I can tell you that, I mean, you live, breathe smart machines, and you want to tell the world that Industry 4.0 is the way to go. So I'm not going to ask you the obvious question whether you're doing it or not. You're doing it. My question is, what is the special thing that you have done, keeping in mind the change scenario, both for the domestic as well as for the export market?
Yeah. See, we are all on the same page as far as the need for automation is concerned. And as Naresh very rightly said, affordable automation, low cost automation. In fact, I use the word affordable automation, and it's very close to my heart, because unless automation has a quick ROI, first of all, a quick implementation so that it doesn't take ages for the project to, start rolling, and quick ROI, it's meaningless. Very few people will adopt it. Now, I have a very interesting insight. When you combine automation with three digital technologies, which I call the low-hanging fruits of Industry 4.0. When you combine these, the effectiveness multiplies. It's much, much more. And what are these three low-hanging fruits? They are, first of all, universal machine monitoring through cloud. Number 2, predictive maintenance to prevent breakdowns from happening. And third is auto gauging for auto correction of machines so that you produce zero defect. These three low hanging fruits of Industry 4.0, and why I call them low hanging fruits is that the essential quality of a low hanging fruit is that it is accessible, it is affordable, and it is easily implementable without internal or external experts. So what I am seeing and what I have been ceaselessly propagating, and I can see people are receiving this, is that this is the time when you implement low cost or affordable automation in critical areas. Start with your bottleneck machines or your critical lines, and don't have automation alone. Combine it with auto gauging, for example, to take care of the quality. Combine it with predictive maintenance so that your machine, you detect the symptoms of the problem much before the problem actually happens. And you also have machine monitoring, so that you don't need humans to collect the data about the efficiency of the machine, the OE, the utilization, downtime, reason for downtime, all those things. So when you combine affordable automation with these three low-hanging fruits, you have a super effective system which pays for itself in months. So this is my take on the adoption of digitization. Automation plus auto gauging plus predictive maintenance and machine monitoring of the entire manufacturing system. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Harish, I've got a slightly tweaked question based on what I heard from all of them, especially if I pick up from what Mr. Anand was talking about, that, the digital journey that they embarked on some time back. So one of the questions probably I didn't ask him, but I felt like asking, but let me direct to you in a different manner. When any organization does that, they will have to co-opt their supply chain and their partners along with it, right? So, and that's where you come into that ecosystem. So how have you been, advising your, the clients on adoption of digital technologies, and which eventually would, pave the way for more of your products and solutions to go into them, and which would take care of, some of those challenges which they have faced in the recent time without really being bothered about that investment.
So I think let's take a look at automation. Let's take a look at Industry 4.0 and various types of silos, right? So we're talking about automation with robots, high cost, high value. We're talking about predictive maintenance, where the suppliers can provide machines. I think GE was one of the first ones to put it in the windmills, and then many others, including ourselves, we have in our machines right now things called condition monitor and status monitor, which allows the user to monitor their machines and predict the breakdowns, predict what problems there are. Then there's got, in terms of digitization, making use of Microsoft Teams, TeamViewer, so on and so forth, helping customers. You see, what we saw during the lockdown period, I'll just give you from experience, and we've been tracking all our customers. Of course, during the lockdown period, other than pharmaceuticals or medical manufacturers, almost everybody was shut down. But as of May 4th, almost immediately when people were allowed to work, everybody first went into the factories to check and maintain their machines, right? Are the machines okay? Because the machine which has been down for about 2 months, month and a half, you've got to take care of them, right? And of course, you're still not permitted to cross state borders, right? How do you go and test the machine? So the technologies that we have to offer and others have to offer, some of them, is basically we can access the machine remotely. We can help our customers remotely. We can guide them through the process of getting the machines up and running. If there are any issues, if there are any concerns, for example, a quality head cannot make it to the factory. You've got an operator who has never used the machine, is now forced to use the machine by the manufacturer saying, hey, listen, I want to get my quality machine up and running. The main user is not there. We've got another user. How do we help them? So you see, that's where we come in, and we are able to actually provide these services, and we have been doing so extensively, not only for problem solving, even installation of machines. We sold some machines from May 4th to right now, and certain machines we've been able to install remotely. So adoption of technology is actually quite unique and quite varied and vast in terms of what technologies are available for people to use.
If I may ask you one question there. So when you say, you have been helping them with the remote management, was it as effective as having your engineer go to the site?
Well, in certain cases, sure. In certain cases where the problems are or the solutioning requires a lot more expertise and to have a touch and feel of the machine, or let's say there's an accident, there's a stylie or a detective broke it, you've got to be there, right? There's no option on that. Mm-hmm. But wherever you can, you do. So basically, you cut the need from 100% to say about 50 to 60%. You can't take the need away completely, right? A physical visit will be required. But even that 40%, if you can save, that's a huge savings, right?
Absolutely.
Both for the customer and the supplier. So I think these are the things that we will see in the future, and we are seeing overseas already, and in India very much so. I think, when we talk about technologies in India as to what people are adopting to, as Nasir also mentioned, you're looking at IoT. Everybody's been talking about IoT over here for the past 3 to 4 years, right? But it's just been a vision, right? The vision is, yeah, let's see what's going to happen with IoT. What are the solutions? What are the options? Oh, it's a big investment. Oh, it's a big change in our organization. We're going to have to replace people with automated technologies. There's always been a hesitation. I think that component gets accelerated right now. It's because there's a need. There's a need because you don't have the workers anymore. You've got many people who moved back to the villages. You've got many people who may come back, and they will come back, but they won't be skilled enough. What do you do at that time? As we're looking at competing globally, not locally. So we have to be able to compare ourselves with, I won't say Vietnam or Malaysia, we have to compare ourselves with Japan, China, and the US and Europe. If we want to be a global player, we can't think about competing with the local players in Asia. We have to think about competing with the global players in Asia.
Right.
So you have to have a blend of both quality and automation, which is productivity and the high quality that you can offer. Because if you're not able to offer the high quality, your global consumers are not going to buy from you. They're not going to want rejections from you, right? So you're going to have to maintain that balance in terms of how do we at the same time, yes, think about saving costs and so on and so forth. But I believe that the ROI, for that matter, I think the ROI, I take a little bit of different view from Naresh. ROI, I believe, is going to be a little longer gestation. You see, in terms of implementing these new technologies, it's a big leap of faith. Big leap of faith for Indian consumers. But when you have the power and the skill that have come from the foreign manufacturers into India, and as they have started to adopt, you take a look at any big company, whether it's Suzuki, whether it's GE, whether it's Rolls-Royce, and so on and so forth, they've already set up establishments over here in India. And if you take a look at the technologies that some of these global companies have adopted in India, it is actually well ahead of what they've adopted in the US or in Japan. They're adopting these technologies over here because they're taking a look at the future. They're looking at the future in terms of where we can get a balance of the Indian skill. And again, I'm not going to talk about the Indian cost of labor. I'm going to talk about the skill of labor. So people come here. I think the reason why foreign companies are investing over here is not because of cost, because cost with people will also continue to rise, right? But the skill level and the pool of skilled labor that we have over here, the engineers that we continue to produce year over year, right? That allows us to adopt the new technologies that come into play, right? The second tier manufacturers, the third tier manufacturers, yes, it is a challenge for them. It is a challenge for them because cash flow is an issue. Investment is an issue. The government has come up with many schemes. There are many NBFCs, there are many other players in the market today that are loaning money to the MSME industries to invest. And I think that continues and that accelerates. So this again will likely and will most definitely drive the adoption of the various solutions that companies like us have to offer, whether it be IoT, whether it be automation, integration of your machining centers with quality machining, measuring tools on the shop floor, non-contact measurement, part programming. You've got users who make part programs, right, for a particular machine. You may not need 4 engineers to make a part programmer when you have a tool, which is an artificial intelligence tool, to be able to provide that program for the user to implement. So these are the activities that we see picking up in the future.
Wonderful. So coming to you, Mr. Nitin, I would have a very straight question to you. You have a large basket of digital technologies that you offer. Which one has been in the greatest demand in the recent past? And why?
Yeah. So I'll start with Mr. Gaur's example. So the current situation for all of us is like the deer running for his life. Yeah. But the question is, how we can use established technologies and couple them with innovation to use them for the current situation. So I'll give you a few examples. We've always had a technology called plant simulation.
Yeah.
Well established, everyone knows it, people have been using it for years. Of late, what we have done is we are using plant simulation to simulate the social distancing or physical distancing for your manufacturing line. Yeah. Very quickly, we can validate whether the social distancing norms that we are putting in place, will these work or will these not? And plant simulation is a very small exercise. It's maybe a week long or 10-day long exercise, and you're done. Similarly, we've put in place, we have had technologies like real-time locating systems, which are used for locating things in your workforce. The automotive industry has been using it for years to locate vehicles in the yard, where are they stored and things like that. Now, we've retweaked the technology, yeah, to ensure that you have a real-time high-speed social distancing on your shop floor. So if your workers are wearing it, then the moment two people come too close, less than 2 meters, this thing will start telling them, hey. So what was already available was the base technology. What was needed was a tweaking for the current situation. Okay. Basically, similarly, predictive quality, IoT, for example. IoT for me is a no-brainer today. Also, in terms of ROI, IoT is a no-brainer. If somebody is still thinking about ROI on an IoT, then I think he needs to go to the market and do a little bit of market research on what is the price points at which IoT is available today in India. We have enough. Mr. Anand spoke about working together with startups. Again, that was a wonderful example of innovation. They have driven innovation to stay ahead. So my simple message is, this is the time that we need to not only run fast as the deer, but also think with innovation, find the place to hide, and let the tiger run away ahead with his higher speed. Yeah. So let's be innovative. Technologies are there, and all we have to do is tweak them a little bit for the current situation so that we can make the most out of them. So what do you think?
Absolutely. So Mr. Anand, Mr. Nitin has a message for you that you work with a startup and not with Siemens. So next time you need to consider him too. All right. So we will take a quick poll before we go to the next topic. And gentlemen, I would like to tell you that we are running a little late. So we'll try to expedite this. So can we have the next question up there, please? Yeah, so the question is, will you prioritize investment in technology in the next 12, I'm sorry, it should be 12 months, not 12 years. That's too long into the future. So basically what we are trying to understand from the participants is, after listening to the digital technologies availability and its adoption across the board, will they go in for technology? Oh my goodness, that's a brute majority of 90%. So I was also thinking along the same lines, and all the participants sort of corroborated that. So let me have a quick question, and I would request all the participants to be a little brief in their answers so that we can still manage the time, because we have quite a few questions that have come from the participants. I was just looking at the questions, and many of them and all look relevant. So let's try to kind of answer some of them at least. So my next question is to Mr. Nitin again. The same question that we had earlier. What is the, how can we define an affordable automation, for the industry in these times when cash seems to be, or conservation of the cash, or conservation, or having a more conservative approach towards investment is the flavor of the day?
Well, automation is always affordable. It is us that we need to look at the impact and plan it. When we look at the impact and plan it and use the right technologies and tools, it is always affordable. Because, you know, Mr. Gaurav spoke about low-hanging fruits. Now, these are already there. These are basic automation low-hanging fruits. Question is, how many of us have adopted it? And to take a to draw a parallel, it's like how many of us have learned a new skill during the lockdown? So automation is always affordable. We only need to plan well for the
Okay. Mr. Gaurav, how have you been able to sell to your market with machines which are having a higher level of intelligence built into it? And the other hand, when you work with your partners, like, I don't know whether it's Siemens or the likes of Siemens or Mitutoyo, how you have been able to tell them that, look, my machines need to have the right intelligence which is demanded by the market, but at a price which is easy on the pocket?
Well, it's a very interesting question. First of all, I have been working with Siemens for many years, and they're a very good trusted partner. And we have come up together with very good solutions, which basically they do not give us the automation solution. They give us technologies which help us to automate our machines. So that said, one of the most important things to understand is that you do not need robots everywhere. When we talk about affordable automation, we talk about affordable automation with and without the robots. With the robot, what it means is that each robot will do more tasks, more as in attending to more number of stations or machines and more complex tasks, so that its utilization is maximized. The second aspect is using intelligent design and simple mechanisms to basically automate a machine without the need for any external, expensive external thing like a robot. This is one aspect. Second thing is, when you talk about how we've been able to convince people to adopt all this, first of all, apart from the need for reduction in workforce or a reality which is facing us, that we have reduced workforce, it is also important that sometimes you get replacements of your people who are not that skilled. So how do you ensure that with lesser skills or no skills, you are able to produce good quality, you are able to eliminate the possibility of defectives going to your customer? So there are these technologies which I earlier talked, and I'll not repeat that again. There are these technologies available, Industry 4.0 technologies, which when combined with an automated machine yield huge dividends. You can literally go from X to 2X in terms of productivity, and from X defectives to 1 by 10X. 10 times the reduction in defectives with the help of these. So these are game changers. And I have come up with an equation. It's a very interesting equation. We've all heard the Einstein equation, E is equal to mc square. So I have this competitiveness equation, C is equal to QP square. So C is competitiveness, Q is the quality improvement brought about by these gauging stations and these technologies. And P square means there are two Ps. These are productivity improvements, PO and PE. PO we call productivity improvement through optimization. To put it in a simple this thing, a machine has a cycle time of 60 seconds. You reduce it to 50 seconds with the help of high pressure coolant and things like that. PE is the increase in the OEE. So earlier, if your machine was working in a 24 hours, actually it was running for 18.5 hours. So if you make it work for 21.5 hours, so when you multiply these two P's, reduction in cycle time, so you produce more pieces per hour, you ensure that machine runs for more hours. So when you multiply, you have that compounding effect. So I have found that C is equal to QP square is, it's got enormous power. It can transform your factory. So this is my take about, how we are encouraging people to invest on technology. And one very important thing, which is very low cost, but has, without that, nothing will happen. That is training. We need to spend a lot on training our people to understand these digital technologies, not so that they are not afraid. And instead of being people who oppose it or implement poorly, they become what I call eager implementers. So training, investment on training is a no-brainer for me. Thank you. Niju, you.
Hello. Niju, we are not audible.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying that we are running short on time. So what we will do is, before I take some of the questions, we will have a quick, take from all of you, 30 seconds, not more than that, on what the midterm to long-term future beholds for the industrial sector. So if I could start with Mr. Naresh.
I think we're in a crisis. Currently we're in a crisis mode, and I think majority of the people are in a defensive posture, right? Mm-hmm. Defensive posture is conservation of cash, looking at costs, and so on and so forth. I think that's one approach which is a bit detrimental, because in a crisis there's opportunity, and the opportunity you cannot see it today. And the people who will come out ahead are the people who will also take an offensive posture. Offensive means, okay, let's start looking at what is there to invest in. How do we invest? What do we invest in? How do we rejig our organization? And so on and so forth. I think a balance of both of these is very, very important in today's day. And I think that's what's going to set apart the survivors versus the people who are going to fall behind. And there will be, unfortunately, a lot of people who will fall behind, who may not adopt to these new technologies.
Great, wonderful. So, Mr. Naresh?
Yeah, I'll take two words, which were recently discussed just now. One was training skills. I've seen in my experience that in the plants, people don't want to upgrade their skills because they think that their task will go up. That means we need to motivate them. You buy a new smartphone, nobody teaches you how to operate. And even a 10th fail, or even your mates, homemates, they learn how to operate, and your TVs, new televisions that are coming, or for that sake, any new technology that is coming in household, like you have microwave ovens or induction cookers. These are general things that everybody is using in a home. So who teaches them? Who trains them? Homemakers, I'm not talking about the grandmas who are there in the houses. They are still operating microwave ovens. Nobody's trained them. So why there should be a challenge in operating a new machine? You hire a driver, giving him your BMW. Your own life depends on that. He's not a skilled guy. For that sake, or rather than being a simple driver. So training is simply a motivation and engagement of the employees, one thing. And then there is a second a huge misnomer because of technology, that there will be job losses. The technology will bring job losses. I don't think so. It's only a change in what you are doing today. We never had Swiggies and Zomatos delivering food. We never had online guys, home delivery guys sending you carrots and radishes in your home. So there are things and opportunities that will develop. You may lose a job as an operator in a plant, but you may find a job as somewhere else. You have Olas and Ubers driving you around. So the roles are going to change. You can't have traditional jobs all the time.
Got it.
Those are two things that I have to spell out here.
Sure. Mr. Naseer, a very quick take from your side.
Yeah, so I'll not divide between the medium and long term, but what I would say is there are 4 to 5 key focus areas which I think the organization should be focusing on, will be focusing on. One is revisiting the digitization strategy, what already we have from the cost, quality, and delivery perspective. Second would be the focus, a very high focus on flexibility. It's not only the facility, but the people. We talked about multi-skilling and all those things. So both blue collar as well as white collar flexibility and multi-skilling, that would be the second. Third, revisiting all our cost structures, including the people structure and the way we are doing our businesses and all those things. Revisiting our sourcing strategy, which I also talked about, and whatever risk mitigation or risk management we have done for the sourcing suppliers. So revisiting that. And finally, it would be how to build more agility into the organization and bring more customer centricity. I feel these are the 4 to 5 areas where we should be focusing on.
Wonderful. Mr. Anand?
So yeah, I think Mr. Nasir, Mr. Naresh covered a lot of it. I think one of the things that I'd like to add is to say that in terms of adoption, and we touched it during one of the other discussions, is that I think we've got to have the ability and the culture to promote failures as well. We shouldn't be afraid of experimenting technology. I think in times to come, I'm sure there are going to be many more technologies that would emerge. I think if we sort of incentivize, the ability to experiment and fail, I think we would achieve a lot more. So, and from an outlook perspective, I think I'm extremely optimistic that demand will, resurrect, and all of the industries will, sort of come back pretty soon to the growth path.
Thank you. Mr. Nitin, a very quick take.
Yeah, so a lot has been covered, and I agree. I would illustrate rather that innovation is what is going to take us through in the medium term, because things are going to change, and we are going to need to manage changes with very high speed. So we are going to need to lead with innovation. Now, taking a cue from what Harsh said, basically, traditional logic, a defensive posture in this time would say, do not experiment. Yeah. But innovation is all about doing new things, and we need to do new things. We need to do new things successfully. The world is changing very fast. Our speed of change has to be faster than how the things are changing. And I think I'm happy to have all the leaders here in Mr. Anand, Mr. Gaur, Mr. Nasir, everyone, Mr. Gaurav, Harsh, that we are all in agreement that we need to continue to innovate and innovate faster. We also saw from the poll that everybody overwhelmingly said they will invest in technology in the next 12 months. Even though I feel that from the first poll, the 34% who said we will not be adopting new technologies are the ones who are the early adopters and are already on doing technology for the last 3 to 4 years.
Right. Thank you. Finally, Mr. Gaurav.
Basically, I fully agree with all that my co-panelists have said. I don't need to add anything more except this one sentence that there are going to be companies which will fail, which will wither away, and there are going to be companies which come out stronger. And it is the companies who invest in digital technologies, in smart manufacturing, they definitely will do very well in the long term, medium and long term.
All right, great. So, gentlemen, I have few questions. I would take a couple of them, and let me just read out and would assign based on my understanding of who would be the best person to take this. One of them is, what's the way forward for an engineering unit in the small scale sector into small batch processing to introduce automation? There are limitations on volumes because of customized products, investment, etc. Obviously, CNC turning center machines are already in place. What next? Is there a cell that can guide companies like, I mean, I'm assuming that this person is from an MSME.
Yeah.
So I would probably, Mr. Harish, if you can take that question, please, for me.
I think we come in from a quality perspective, and for MSMEs, for SMEs, the products that we have to offer in the quality field, they'd use a micrometer, they'd use a caliper, an indicator, so on and so forth. And as I think we discussed on a separate forum, in India, many people are still using a micrometer and they read and they note down, oh, this is the reading and these are my measurements. Then they go into a computer or a notebook, type it out, go send it. These are what most SMEs are doing today. The most basic thing is just move to Digimatic, take a reading. Your skill level required for somebody to operate that instrument goes down. You get a cost saving there. Two, the quality benefits that you get will save you cost on the long run by saving on your rejections. I think one aspect that most SMEs miss, I think most major enterprises get it, that quality is very, very important. But with SMEs, the issue is that it's always a battle between cost. And if you want to save cost, what do you want to compromise on? Sometimes, and most of the time, quality takes a back seat, thinking that it's okay. But I think that's a misconception, because what that does in effect is basically the rates of rejections go up. And when the rates of rejections go up over a longer term period, the cost that you incur is far, far higher. So implementing good processes, implementing basic changes in the organization from a quality perspective, using the right tools, using digitized tools is very important, as simple as that.
Wonderful. Mr. Nasir, we have a question specifically for you. So this question goes like this: how sticky are the current overseas supply chain? To what extent can they be unraveled for de-risking the business?
Yeah, so currently, yes, there is a challenge for the overseas supplier, but slowly and gradually it is ramping up. I would say currently, yes, we'll have to depend on them, but on the long term, we'll have to find some answer. So maybe immediately, because supply chain is very, very complicated and there are a lot of cost implications. So suddenly we cannot change the supplier. Okay, so in long term, we'll have to find an alternative. And of course, we discuss about the quality and things. So we should have, because there are some proprietary technology, which is like we get from the overseas supplier, which currently in India we don't have. So we'll have to develop those type of technology and suppliers locally or in India, so that then we can have our less dependency on the overseas suppliers, which we have currently.
All right. So one final question, and there is definitely the person has identified himself, Mr. Sachin Sharma of MK Auto Clutch Group. So let me put this question to Mr. Gaurav, because I do see investment in machineries that are being spoken. So it says, how far can the existing investment of machineries be used for transformation towards automation and digitalization?
That's a very good question. And let me tell you, we have come up with a term called NOCOP, N-O-C-O-P. It is an abbreviation of no cost, low cost projects in smart manufacturing for existing machines. And this idea is that through execution of these kind of projects, you are able to utilize your existing equipment in a much more flexible, in a much more efficient, and in a manner which produces better quality by using very small, smart, retrofittable technologies. So retrofit is a key word here, because if you are talking about your existing machines, you should be able to retrofit that into your this thing.
Yep.
So that's my answer. Retrofit small, smart technologies, affordable technologies, low cost technologies. And I would only like to add here that then you need good training of your in-house people in those technologies.
All right, thank you. So before I hand it over to Cyril and his team at Reed, let me very quickly kind of summarize some of the key points that emerge from them for the sake of all the participants. First and foremost, what I could gather is that all of us agree that investment is an absolute must in automation and digitalization. So irrespective of what phase we are going through, that's something which everyone has to adopt, because they have to be prepared for the future. Second is that at the same time, we have to manage the cost structure, which is currently there because cash is currently king. So it's a fine balance. It will depend on the organization, which is looking at, what to invest, when to invest. Then we are talking about how to kind of de-risk the, current supply chain. So sourcing strategy will have to undergo a change. And of course, we are talking about managing this change through innovation. Uh, so with these points, I would like to thank all of you for a wonderful session. It was a pleasure speaking to all of you. And I must, very sincerely tell you that I learned a lot of things from all of you, and I hope to continue learning from you. And I'm sure that the participants also enjoyed doing that. So I would also like to thank, the Read exhibition, Cyril, Rima, Chaitali, and the entire team which worked behind making this webinar a success. So with that, thank you very much, and hand it over back to the team there.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, Niju, you have done a wonderful job, I must tell you, and very thankful to you for sparing your valuable time, not only today, but all these days whenever we did preparations for this webinar. I also thank all the panelists. I'm sure there is a lot to take home from these discussions that we had on this webinar. I'm sure all the attendees who are in big numbers, I'm sure they all have benefited from this webinar. And there are a lot more questions I could also see on the Q&A. Don't get disappointed. The questions will be passed on to all the panelists, and you will get an email from our side in next 72 hours. I assure you that. And once again, thank you for attending this webinar. And my colleagues at Read Exhibitions and Read Try On Exhibitions, thank you very much for all your support. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good day to all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.